Hello everyone, I'm Miku and this is Mekanism version 10 mod report. What is mod report basically? Mod report is a video format that I play a kitchen sink pack or a new mod from a new version of Minecraft, and I tell everyone about the comments of me on the mod and basically the features and such. Okay, so we'll talk about today's agenda. We will firstly introduce the new features, the new major features of Mechanism version 10, tell you guys about the recipe and progression line changes, a highlight on the playtest, some possible bugs and logic errors, and general thoughts on the mod. So, Mechanism version 10 introduced nuclear fission to the mod, which is between early game wind generators and gas burning generators and fusion reactor, like before fusion reactor. Also, it introduced antimatter, which is produced from fission byproducts, and mecha suit, which is something like a modular power suit. But it really caused something that I call IZ2ization of the mod itself, because they are copying ideas from IC2 and modular power suit, which in many mod packs with Tech Reborn, it basically used Tech Reborn resources, so it's nothing different from IZ2. And it creates such a thing that makes the mod so similar to IC2, and in how it's developed, and I don't really like the trend of this. So this mod mod now in 1.16, it brings two new multi-block, which is the fission reactor and the supercritical phase shifter. The fission reactor, it creates the fusion byproducts, like the fusion waste from fissile fuel. And this fusion waste either can be produced through a solar neutron activator in the polonium or isentropic centrifuge for the plutonium. In this supercritical phase shifter, it's just like a large multi-block of a mass fabricator. It's like a mass fabricator. It takes in tons of energy, not even enough as supplied by the fission reactor. You need another fusion reactor to supply the energy for it. And it takes nuclear waste, which is basically rubbish. If not used, for polonium and such, it's basically rubbish. You're taking rubbish and a lot of energy to produce little antimatter. How little is it? It's like 1,000 millibuckets of the polonium, or basically 10 millibuckets of the nuclear waste produce 1 millibucket of polonium. So basically, to sum it up, you need 10 buckets of reactor waste to make 1 millibucket of antimatter. 10 millibuckets of reactor waste is basically 10 ingots of uranium. So you will need 10,000 uranium for 1 millibucket of antimatter. Not 1 millibucket, but I mean one pellet, 1,000 millibuckets of antimatter. You need 10,000 uranium. Okay? Anyway, that's a big problem, but we'll talk about it later. Okay. Now, this version of Mekanism altered some resource requirements, like the basic circuit used to require 1 redstone, now it doubles. And with enrichment chambers, it used to require 8 and it doubles. Same deal for advanced alloy in diamonds. Atomic alloys, it even quadruple the resource requirement from 1 piece of refined obsidian to 4. because they think it's an advanced resource. It makes stuff difficult and expensive because they think you will use an enrichment chamber. So you will basically make very little of a resource and just enrich it. But like, this makes stuff difficult, but it's more of an annoying thing that it really does any sort of impact. Like, it's just making calculation complicated. And it's just make the resource requirement intensive without any real reason, like, you know. Okay, now this photo is a bit small, but now the fusion reactor requires polonium. Like this fusion casing, these 4 pellets here, they are polonium pellets. And you need a lot of atomic alloy for the casings. You used to require 1 atomic alloy for 4 casing, but now you require 1 per casing. Okay. The solar neutron activator no longer accepts speed upgrades. However, one of them can power a fusion reactor at injection rate of 56. If 28 if it's placed in the overworld cost is half, you only got half of day and half of night. Okay. So basically, it's increasing resource requirements and making stuff complicated. What is it like? It's like what happened in IC2 1.6.4. In 147, IC2 has very cheap stuff, like the energy crystal. You only need 1 diamond for it. Okay, in 164, they introduced energium dust. With energium dust, you are required to make 4 diamonds for 1 energy crystal. And you need 16 diamonds for an MFE, or even like 40 diamond for an MFSU. It's ridiculous. Like you could say it's a very advanced thing or something like that, but you are making resource requirement difficult and complicated. But Mekanism is quite a mod for new players. Like it's like thermal expansion, but you are making stuff really complicated, and it's not like it's contained within itself. Like if you require such a high amount of fluoride and uranium, you are making things not self-contained. Like I even require an immersive engineering excavator to dig the uranium for me, but I don't want to do that much work. I want stuff to be renewable if you are requiring in such a large amount, or else it's not quite really friendly for new players. Anyway, it's time for the playtesting highlight. Hello everyone, welcome to playtest highlights. And in this part of the mod report, I will demonstrate and run down on how do I specifically play the Mekanism version 10 in playtest, and basically demonstrate like how I did it in specifically Velicia 3. Okay, so basically I started mining in this mine shaft here, and I got the resources and I made the base upstairs, like right there, and I just teleport. Not this one. Like this is basically my base. And let's go through how I started. Basically, I started making the factories and then this electrolytic separator for the hydrogen for my jetpack, which is now in my RS system. I made a spare one. And basically, I made like 2 stacks of wind generators to generate my first power of approximately 28 kRF. With that power, I was able to power some of the resistive heaters for thermal evaporation chambers. In Mekanism version 10, the heat requirement of these thermal evaporation units was changed such that you cannot directly use a heat generator and lava for it. Moreover, this pack that contains lava monsters which will spawn if I put lava on a heat generator above. With the brine produced in the thermal evaporation plant, I then can produce sodium and chlorine, sodium which is dumped, and chlorine which is used for HCl with water for the injecting factory. This side of thing, basically I use solar factories and produce the gravel for the flint and then crushed into gunpowder and sulfur, which the sulfur made with HCl and gunpowder is then made into sulfur dioxide and sulfuric acid. The use of sulfuric acid is to be mixed with fluorite from this fluorite ore, becomes fluoride crystal and mixed with sulfuric acid to become phosphoric acid, like hydrofluoric acid, not phosphoric, hydrofluoric acid. This HF will then be made with uranium dioxide. Here, the uranium oxide from yellow cake uranium, which is produced from uranium ingot. This here, this line, basically is just a or quintupling setup of the uranium, since uranium is really scarce. Moreover, like you have already produced sulfuric acid and hydrochloric acid here, so there's no point of not doing so. And mix yellow cake uranium into here and uranium hexafluoride, which then is going through this new machine, the isotropic centrifuge, into fissile fuel used in this fission reactor. This one is a fission reactor of maximum 18 millibuckets per tick. So basically a filled fission reactor with a lot of water from sinks. Then the steam is passed on through an industrial turbine for the power for the SPS. Now, the SPS casings requires a lot of HDPE, which needs to be automated here with biofuel, substrate, and liquid ethylene. And it needs a lot of polonium and plutonium, approximately 2 stacks of plutonium and 8 stacks of polonium, which these materials are produced here by reprocessing fissile fuel. When it goes through a solar neutron activator, it basically becomes polonium. And if it goes through a isotropic centrifuge with nuclear waste, it basically becomes plutonium. Adding in fluoride dust yields the pellet and the spent nuclear waste. It is then stored in a pipe here, which in my opinion, it's a bug because you can put spent nuclear waste in this instead of the specified nuclear waste barrels. With the resources produced to make the SPS, it needs large amounts of energy to basically slowly produce the antimatter needed here, produced here, and it can be crystallized into antimatter pellets, specifically for the teleportation unit and the gravitational modulating unit that I use to fly. Teleportation unit allows me to teleport. Since it needs large amount of power, I will need to create a fusion reactor with injection rate of 28 to produce the amount of power. Tritium is produced through the solar neutron activators One of them can approximately produce supply for injection of 56, but I will rather make 2 to be safe. Now I just use 2 of the thermal evaporation plants with approximately 750 FE per tick from resistive heaters. This produces DT fuel, and I will need 4 pumps with maximum upgrade and half upgrade electrolytic separator to supply the fuel for the fusion reactor. So the main concern of antimatter is that it's like UU matter, and it takes like a very large amount of energy, and basically using somewhat trash like the polonium is basically nuclear waste, somewhat trash, to make little bits of antimatter. And for just 3 pellets of antimatter for the gravitational thing, it took me 48 hours of AFK, of offline AFK. And basically all these SPS casings, it took me another like maybe 12 hours to 14 hours of AFK to make, like all these ports and such. It totally makes no sense unless I'm on such a public server that has offline chunk loading available. And in the meantime, I was forced to leave Mekanism alone, and I was forced to play other mods such as Botania or like Industrial Foregoing, or else I would have nothing to do and just AFK. So this is basically the entire rundown of my playthrough, and I've made the endgame item of the modulating unit and the teleportation unit. However, I think this is too grindy for such a kitchen sink pack for casual players. For speedrun players, it makes sense because you can scale up production into a ginormous scale, but for normal casual players, they are not expected to do so, and you are making something much more complicated than it should. Mekanism used to be a very, I would say, overpowered mod for new players, but now it's like how IC2 used to be very good, and they thought it's not as good and make a very extremely complicated, which is, I don't think is a good thing, as kitchen sink is supposed to be easy for players such that it gives them the desire to continue playing the pack. Like starting on modding should be easy for casual players, and mod pack makers should be responsible for making it challenging for advanced players. So this is the end of the playtest highlights part, and we will continue onto general thoughts and comment. Okay, back from the playtesting highlight, I guess. So now we talk about the possible bugs of Mekanism version 10. The internal buffer of the ultimate pressurized tube is quite large, like 10,000 buckets in one pipe. Then there's no incentive to store the fluid in tanks when you can store in just the buffer of the tube. Like all those spent nuclear waste, I can put it in the ultimate pressurized tube as demonstrated in the playtest, instead of the intended nuclear waste barrel, which deletes 1 millibucket of fluid each minute. Because with this such a slow rate, it makes no sense to put in huge amount of nuclear waste barrel when I will never ever make over 1,000 pellets of polonium. I just use one pipe and store 10,000 of it. Okay. So generally, like I think that Mekanism version 10 is moving into a gated and staged mod. We will need to do a lot more stuff, like before I don't need to do 5XOR processing, all those chemistry for fusion reactor. So I don't need to get like middle ground power generation first. I am like needing to do a lot more stuff for fusion reactor. In order to play what I want, I need to do a lot more stuff. It lacks the modularity and the tree type development before. Okay. See, it forced fission. It forced 5x processing. It forced HCl. It forced H2SO4. A lot of modularity was lost, basically. And some of the ideas of UU matter and power suit, it's not power suit. It's quite a good idea, but UU matter, you are basically implementing a not as good thing for new player into your mod, and you are requiring it for many stuff. It just makes your mod not so new player friendly. So basically, mod developers add new features. It's good, but like, I want the mod to be somewhat easier and friendlier for newcomers. I don't want to wait straight 48 hours for antimatter. Like, before, I just wait straight 48 hours for the 3 pellet of antimatter for my gravitation module. Expert pack creators, on the other hand, makes different features into a progression line. It's like getting raw materials cooked. Like, mod developers are like the butcher. They kill a cow and give you beef. Expert pack creators, they are like the cook. They take the beef, take the pepper, or maybe take some cheese, take some bread, make it into a burger. That's the different role. Like, you should reduce, as the butcher, you should reduce the need of heavy automation requirements, or it would like deter newcoming players. If they are intended to play a kitchen sink pack, you're deterring newcoming players. And automation requirements, like not only Mekanism, like many different mods, they have a problem that like mostly they should be based on late game renewable resources. Like uranium, I don't want to go out and actively move my digital miner and dig for uranium. It's not fun. It's annoying. Okay, the current amount of automation is enough in Mekanism. Just add features, but please don't gate everything new beyond antimatter, because it's just wasting time making antimatter. It makes matter worse. Or maybe even like you can reduce the amount of antimatter needed for your antimatter transformer or something like that. Like it transforms the coal into diamond and such. It just makes no sense. I need to wait such a long time for antimatter. But basically, that antimatter synthesizer takes 1/5 of an antimatter pellet to transform a thing. It makes no incentive to use that machine. So this is the end of the mod report. And thank you for watching. Hopefully, Mekanism or any other mods authors could benefit, or maybe could take an insight and idea from this report. Thank you.